How many of you guys have interacted with people abroad about business? Since most of you are still in school, very few of you probably did. But later on, it is likely that you will need to interact with people not in the US for some business-related work. With this comes a need and responsibility to be aware of how procedures could be different abroad. In today's society, there are people around the world who believe that cultural differences are insignificant when it comes to business. When business deals are conducted, people will work with who they trust and understand. Being culturally aware is the first step toward this. Many of you have probably heard the proverb, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. If you don't know what this means, it means that when in a foreign place, you should follow their customs and their values. I have a few relatives who work with people in multiple countries. Because of lockdown, all the meetings are obviously virtual and through some video calling platform. But before this, some had to visit different countries occasionally. They had to learn how people behave and what the business norms are there, such as the ones I will explain shortly. One aspect to be aware of is age. In some countries like Japan, older people are supreme and are treated with a lot of respect. So in meetings, they may need to be addressed in a certain way. It's important to discern and realize this so you don't risk disrespecting people wherever you are. But in other countries, such as Sweden, social equality is emphasized, so there's a flat organizational hierarchy. In Spain, asking for approval from someone in a lower rank than you can be seen as rude. The boss generally has the decision-making power here. No matter where you are, body language plays a major role in what you communicate to others. This includes facial expressions, gestures, and posture. Some obvious ones are smiles and frowns, and the meanings are pretty similar in every culture. But there are cultural differences in eye contact. In America, if you don't look at someone in the eyes, it suggests that you are hiding something or are being dishonest. In New Zealand, eye contact is respectful, while on the other hand, eye contact in Australia and South Korea can be perceived as disrespectful. As you can probably tell, it is pretty difficult to pick up on these clues when you're in some other country. Pretty much the only way to realize what to do is by observing other people and how they behave. This should also be employed when trying to figure out how to greet someone from another country. There are specific sets of phrases used in some countries and physical gestures in others, like shaking hands or bowing. During international meetings, communication procedures may vary greatly. Effective communication can make or break a business deal. This goes beyond just language barriers. It's about how the information is conveyed, such as the tone. For example, in the US and Germany, people may speak loudly and in an assertive manner while sharing ideas. But in Japan, people tend to speak softly and with a more passive voice for making suggestions. Physical gestures such as shaking hands or bowing could be interpreted differently as well. In the US and most of Europe, a business handshake is the norm, and in some Middle Eastern countries, handshakes must only be with the right hand, since the left hand is seen as unhygienic. Formality plays a major role in the workplace etiquette. You must think about how the person you're talking to would wish to be addressed. People in Asian countries, such as China, prefer to be addressed by titles or last names, while people in America often use first names. Using the wrong form of formality with a potential foreign client can completely ruin a partnership. But formality not only applies to addressing someone, but also with clothing. In the US, formal clothing is generally not required except in the fields of financial services or law. On the other hand, in Japan and Germany, not dressing appropriately could mean a bad first impression. It is vital to reach your target audience effectively. When making marketing campaigns or advertisements, you must be aware of customs, gender views, and ideologies in order to not insult the audience. For example, in Japan and Austria, men are in control of most of the decision making, but in Sweden, women make most of the purchasing decisions. It is always a good rule of thumb to avoid any political conversations with clients or potential partners, both domestic and international. Unless it actually pertains to the matter at hand, it is good not to discuss any political matter. Other topics that also fall into this category include spiritual and social matters. This can lead to differing conflict management and more tension. For example, if someone from the Netherlands, where an argument is seen as constructive and necessary, argues with someone from Japan, where a public argument is extremely offensive, there would be tension. A seemingly unimportant aspect of business is a business card. In Japan, business cards are supposed to be treated with respect. So after receiving one, the recipient should study the card while holding it with two hands before carefully putting it away. Writing on it or quickly putting it away could be perceived as very insulting. An excellent example of most of these points is with Latin America. In the major cities, industrial and commercial centers have a business culture similar to the one of the US and Europe. But outside of these cities, business culture is very different as local customs come into play. In most Latin American businesses, the structure is typically hierarchical, with the top having the most power and demanding the most respect. An important factor influencing business culture in this region is time. A common phrase here is El tiempo es como el espacio, which translates to time is space. This means that situations take precedence over schedules. People from time-conscious countries like the US, Canada, and Northern Europe are likely to be frustrated with the lack of promptness and punctuality. The manners in business interactions in most Latin American countries are similar to those of the US and Europe. People are expected to dress professionally and be polite. They are generally physical with their conversations. In most of Latin America, family is very important. They are normally structured with the oldest male being the head. So in family-owned businesses, the patriarch has a key decision-making authority. It is vital to be aware of how seemingly normal actions could be interpreted abroad, especially with business, but also in general. Knowing how to behave in an unfamiliar situation can be the key to make or break a business deal. Thank you.